Well, welcome to our welcome webinar for international MSW students. We'll be starting the program here in the fall 2023. We're really happy to have you with us. And we'll get started with introductions here. So my name is Katie Lopez. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of our Office of Global Activities and also a clinical assistant adjunct faculty member here at the School of Social Work. I'm also a graduate of the program. So like you at one point, I was getting ready for my MSW program. And so I have both experience being a student and now being a staff and administrator in the program. And I'll allow Greta to introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greta Kemp. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a coordinator in the Office of Global Activities working here with Katie. I am also a graduate of the MSW program here at the School of Social Work at U of M. And so I graduated several years ago and I now work in the office. We're really excited to have you all here this morning and to be welcoming you in the fall.
And then I should mention that typically during the fall and winter semesters during the school year time, we typically have a student staff that works with us as well. But during the summer, we don't have someone in that position. So there'll be another face that will join our team come the fall. But we are a pretty small office. So the two full-time staff members are me and Greta. And then there will be a student staff, often an international student that we hire that works with us as well. So there's the information about that. A little bit about session housekeeping. First of all, it's really important to just know that we are recording the session, as Greta mentioned, and we will be sharing the slides with you. So there's lots of links that are on the slides that you may be interested in exploring further. If you're interested in having them now, you can just let us know via the chat and we can drop them in the chat. But we will be sending you a copy of the slides and a copy of the recording so that you have all this information to refer back to. So don't feel like you don't need to memorize it all or take copious notes. We'll be providing you with these resources. Just for the quality of the recording, we do have you all currently on mute, so we don't have any sound feedback. So if you're willing to stay on mute through the session, that would be great. But do feel free to use the chat box. So the chat box should be down on the bottom for you. You can click on that and anyone can enter anything in the chat at any point. Your name will be included as you put that in there. At the end, we'll respond to any submitted questions. So do feel free to put questions up as they come up, as they're relevant to the slides that we're talking about. But for the majority of them, unless it's something that can be answered quickly through chat, we will hold on to those and answer them at the end of the session. So there will be time for Q&A. And then again, as we noted, that the slides will be both sent to you through email, but we'll also post them to the important information for incoming students. All right, our agenda for today, we're going to talk a little bit about the timeline between now and when you start the MSW program. We'll talk a little bit about COVID-19 updates. There isn't a lot to share there, but we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll cover academics, which is talking both about how you'll register for courses and also field work, which is a part of your academic program in the MSW program. And then we'll talk a little bit about financial aid and what that looks like. So I'll cover those sections and then I'll hand it over to Greta, who will talk about arrival logistics, life in Ann Arbor. And then at the end, there will be a chance for everyone to just briefly introduce themselves if you choose to, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So the first thing is in terms of timeline. What do things look like between now and when classes get started on August 28th? There's a couple things that you should be doing all summer long. And one of them that's really important is checking your University of Michigan email. So I remember being in this position where you've got another email and you've got kind of what you're used to doing. And then all of a sudden you get this U of M email and I wasn't always great on remembering to check it, but lots of important stuff is being sent out there. In the beginning, the admissions team is using your non-U of M email address until you get your U of M email address set up. But as you've kind of enrolled and submitted your deposit and whatnot, the majority of the information will be coming through your U of M email address. So please do make sure to be checking that and to be following up with the information that's sent. If you think you might be exempt from one of our essential courses or what's called our foundation courses, for instance, if you have taken a research course in undergrad, you may be able to exempt out of or to have that kind of checked off that it's something that you've already done. So you'll be receiving information if you haven't already from our Office of Student Services about how to do that. But that's something that does need to take place over the summer semester as opposed to once you arrive here. So paying attention to emails around that. We do have a Seed Week orientation kit, and I am going to just briefly show you what this looks like. So this is the website for our admitted students. We do have both an online program. You all are in the on-campus program. And the toolkit just includes a lot of important information. So we're talking about some of the dates. There's lots of really great webinars that you can attend, like a webinar that we're having on housing, or one that we have for navigating course registration. So paying attention to this website and spending some time to explore it. You can look at our orientation week or our seed week courses and what's offered, thinking about field or financial aid. So many different helpful things that are on this webpage. So I would definitely encourage you to check that out if you haven't already. And again, the link will be in the recording and in the PowerPoint when we send it to you. One of the important things I did want to highlight is on June 12th, there's a course planning webinar. And so this is a webinar that will let you know how you do your course planning within the School of Social Work and give you more information about what registration will look like. So you should be getting more information later this month from the Office of Student Services, both about registering and the webinar. I highly recommend that you either attend the webinar if you can, given the time that it is for where you are, or that you watch the recording of it. So we'll answer a lot of the questions that you likely have about how do you get registered for courses and what does that look like. During the month of July, you'll be going through the registration process. That is something that's staggered because there's so many of you. So if all 400 new students got on at once to register, it'd probably crash the system. So you will be given registration windows of time, and you'll get more information about that. But that's often a question students have at this point is, how do I get my courses? As you have likely already interfaced with, we have an international center on campus. They are the center that helps to process your visas. So most of you have probably been working with Michelle Gorton in our Office of Student Services. Michelle collects a lot of the information and then passes it on to the International Center that will then issue you your I-9 or your DS 2019 that you need to get your visa to come here to the US. They provide a ton of resources for students in terms of arriving in Ann Arbor and navigating campus as an international student. And they have international summer orientation sessions. And so I'd really suggest that you take some time and explore that website as well. In the past, at least, they've often offered some of the different sessions at least 2 times. So there might be 2 different sessions on banking in Ann Arbor, right? And so they're offered at different times to see if folks can attend. And again, they'll probably have recordings of those. Then we come to the last week of August, or the second to last week of August, when we have orientation week. So the August 21st is a day for international student orientation. So this is the first day of orientation week, and it's all for you all. So you'll get to again, see me and Greta, hopefully in person, and maybe some of our new staff as well, if we've hired by that point. And we'll have a day of orientation for you as international students. We'll have guest speakers from some of the different offices, like the field office, our MSW director, our writing coach, some of the different people within the school you'll get to meet. It'll be kind of like today, but more oriented towards actually starting the program, not kind of pre-arrival logistics. One of the really great parts of that is we typically have a panel at lunchtime with 3 to 4 returned international or second year international students that share their experiences. And so I think that students always really appreciate the chance to connect with current students that were, where you were a year ago, that can tell you a little bit more about tips and tricks for navigating the program. So then for the rest of that week, August 22nd through 25th, there's a variety of different orientation activities that you are expected to attend. Some of those days will be fully remote days, and so there'll be online Zoom sessions, and other of those days are designated as in-person sessions. So for instance, the day that you'll be on campus, you'll have lunch with your advisor and some of the other meetings. So making sure that you're planning. Classes do start August 28th, but really everything starts for you all as incoming students a week prior. So next, impacts of COVID-19. So largely many of the things that were highly different and disruptive given COVID the past couple of years, most of that has kind of gone back to pre-COVID in terms of what things look like on campus. But one thing is to note is that with that, this is the first school year where the US government has returned to pre-pandemic enrollment requirements. So for the past 3 years, or part of 3 years, international students had been allowed to take more than 3 credits worth of online courses every semester, because many campuses were running fully online courses at the height of the pandemic, or some hybrid options throughout the past few terms. But this is the first semester now where we've gone back to the pre-pandemic rules of you can take an online course, but it's only 3 credits per semester. So you can't, for instance, enroll in 6 credits of online courses and still be in your visa status. So it's important to know that. As you all are in the residential program, you'll primarily be taking, in-person on-campus courses, but some of you may have interest in taking some of the online courses that are offered, because we do have an online MSW program. Particularly some of the students that are in our interpersonal practice pathway might be interested in some of those courses, and sometimes there is the opportunity to enroll in them. You just need to make sure that you're not in more than 3 credits in any given semester. The other place that we have seen some continued disruption is just in receiving and processing visas. I think largely that has been worked out in most places, but during the pandemic, we did set up the ability that if you're going through that process to get your visa and you're not able to get an appointment, or there's delays for various reasons, that we do have an August 15th deadline to request a deferral. So you should be working with Michelle to get your documentation together, to get the I-9 or the DS 2019 so you can get your visa appointment and come. But if for some reason it appears that that isn't going to be possible, the School of Social Work would need to know by August 15th if you plan to defer for a year. And you can send an email just asking, letting them know the reason that you're requesting the deferral. And if you're still going through the process and you're unsure, we would prefer you to register for classes as you're trying to figure that out, as opposed to waiting until you get your visa and then trying to register for classes after many of them are already filled. Again, I've already really went through this, but the course planning webinar is June 12th. It's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And so, if you're in a 12-hour time zone difference, that's 3 a.m. Feel free to watch the recording. But again, even if you're not able to attend live, that's really important to watch that to get the information that you need. I think the Office of Student Services often receives many email questions about registration that have been answered in that webinar. So you'll do yourself a favor if you watch that first. And then if you have questions, for sure, reach out to ask. I guess one thing I'll show you too is that with the registration information that you'll be receiving, this is just an example. We have what are called course planning worksheets that plan out for you which classes you should be taking which semester, depending on if you're an advanced standing student that already has a BSW, or you're in their 16-month program or a 20-month program. And so they'll go over this, but in going through and picking your courses, it'll tell you which courses are, for instance, required, like these that have the X, versus when you start to be able to take electives, and that's when you're making some choices about courses. It'll also tell you when to take your field placement credits. So I'm sure that you all have questions about that. The information is coming. As I mentioned before, the International Center just has a wealth of information. So they do the orientation that I mentioned that happens over the course of 2-3 weeks in July and August. But they also have some virtual pre-departure orientations. So you'll learn U of M is a really large place. You'll have resources from us that are specific to social work in the School of Social Work, but there are some things that are campus-wide, like the International Center does. So those won't be social work specific, but it'll be U of M and Ann Arbor specific. So there's also some other things that you can, go through as you're getting ready to prepare to come to campus, such as a pre-arrival guide and an international student welcome booklet. So as you'll see, this webinar is full of links of things that you can choose to explore as makes sense for your situation. A couple of other School of Social Work pre-arrival resources. The admitted student resources is really helpful. So once you, paid your deposit and made your decision to come, you should have been notified about that page. information for incoming students. So again, that is a place where we've kind of put a lot of the links to things that incoming students are interested in all in one place. And then we do also have an international student webpage. And so some of you may have already visited this, but this is a page that our office helped put together specifically with international students in mind. And so we've got some profiles of some of our former students that you can read about, and then links to all kinds of different things that we'll talk about today too, like housing and financial aid and the application process that you already successfully navigated. So next, academic platforms. I mentioned this before. It's super important to be checking and responding to your University of Michigan email. So I've just put the link to the account where you can log in for that. So hopefully the majority of you have already done that and you're checking that regularly. I know some students have it forwarded to other email accounts or have it integrated if you already have a Gmail account. So whatever makes the most sense for you, but just making sure that you're remembering and attending to that email account. Everything is somehow branded with an M on it for Michigan or the Wolverine, or, everything is Michiganified, including what we call Wolverine Access. And Wolverine Access is a gateway to a lot of different things that you might need as a student. So as you can see, it's where you'll find your registration appointment and where you'll register for classes and look through the course list. Information about financial aid is there, your class schedule. If you end up with a job on campus, you might be submitting your timesheet through Wolverine Access. So it's kind of a hub of information and different tools that you'll utilize as a student. So Wolverine Access, you'll definitely be directed there as you're needed to, as you need to access that, but wanted to make you aware of that. And then we also have what we call Canvas. And Canvas is our course management system. So similar, if you've used Blackboard or some of the other course management systems, it goes along with the course content that you're getting, but it's a place where your instructor will post to the syllabus. You might be, submitting the majority of your assignments through Canvas. There might be discussion boards that you're either asked to respond to or a place where you can talk to other students. And so this is something that you will definitely become familiar with during your time. I think almost every course uses Canvas as a place to kind of house the reading materials, the assignments, and other things related to the course content. So this is what Canvas looks like, and you'll have a place where your courses are. And in case you're ambitious and want to get familiar with Canvas ahead of time, the school has set up a course Canvas site that you can look at and kind of go through and have a introduction to what Canvas looks like that provides an overview of social work values, and different concepts that will relate to social justice and to our program. So if you're interested in kind of seeing a little bit early and getting familiar, kind of going in there and clicking on things, you can either refer back to the Canvas student guide or to this Canvas course link that is provided for you. We talked a little bit already about registration for classes, but I know it's something that's top on students' mind. So you will receive a specific registration time and date via email. Again, that's because we can't have you all in the system at once. Things would likely crash. But what we do recommend is that if at all possible, you register during that time that you have been given to register, or as close to it as you can. So if my date to register is on Wednesday, I can't register early on Tuesday, but I can register Wednesday at 9 a.m. and any time afterward. So if you're given a registration time that doesn't work great with your time zone difference, please don't worry about logging on at 4 in the morning or something absurd. But it would benefit you to log on and register for classes as soon after your registration appointment as you can. Courses will fill up. We do have a petition process. If a course you're interested in is filled, feel free to put in a petition and ask for permission to enter that class. You'll just have to write up a little bit of a reason why that you need that particular course or why you're seeking a space in that class. But it is something where, many of the classes, if you do not have a BSW degree, are our foundation courses, and there are many options of all of those courses. But if you are a student that already has your BSW degree and you're looking at some of our advanced coursework, you may not get into all the courses you want in your first semester because the returning students have already registered. They have priority because they need to graduate and they need to make sure that they can get into classes. And so it is important to just be attentive to registering on or near your registration time, and then also using that course petition process if needed. I think that is it. Briefly, I'm just going to go over what the academic schedule look like for our students, and kind of give you a breakdown of how courses are set up versus your field placement. So the majority of our students are 16-month students, and this means that they do not have a BSW degree. They're coming in without prior social work coursework that they've done. And so what it looks like is that you are taking 16 credits of courses and no field during your first semester. So you're largely taking what we call our essential courses, or kind of the foundation courses that unlock your ability to later take some of the advanced coursework. Then in your second semester and through the rest of your time in the MSW program, you'll be in your field placement. And so these students start in field 2 days a week, and then they move to 3 days a week in field. So for your first semester, it's just classwork, and then you start from there on out splitting your time between your coursework and your field work. And as you can see, as your field work increases, your amount of credits that you take decreases. So you're taking 16 credits and then you're in field 2 days a week. So now you're down to 12 credits. When you bump up to being in field 3 days a week, once you become a little bit more acclimated and integrated in your placement, then you're only taking 9 credits, or typically 3 courses during that time. And you can see that the credits are pretty evenly split between the 4 semesters. 20-month students are similar in terms of field. So they're starting field again in their second semester. So their first semester, they're just doing their coursework. And again, they're spreading out their credits, and those are reducing as the amount of their field is increasing. So it looks very similar in terms of what it looks like to be here. The main difference is you have a spring, summer semester off. So you're here for what we call fall and winter semester, or end of August through April. Then you take a break where you're not enrolled, and then you come back to finish your coursework. Whereas the 16-month students are just going straight through. So they're doing a fall semester, a winter semester, spring semester, and then another fall. If you are a student that came in with a BSW degree, then you're only here for 3 semesters because you did some of the foundation coursework already in your BSW program. So you are in field throughout the full time that you're in the MSW program, 2 days a week, all at the same site. And then your coursework is spread out across that time. And you can see, again, it's pretty consistent, either 14 to 16 credits during your time in the program. So those students start, everyone starts at the last week of August, and these students will graduate about a year later. And then finally, if you're one of the students in our master track program, that means that you did your first semester online and you're taking those foundation courses now, which means that you only have 3 semesters left. And your field schedule looks a little different than the advanced standing students because you need more field hours. Because the BSW students did field credits in their undergrad, they're doing 2 days a week for field throughout, whereas our master track students are doing 2 days a week during their foundation field or their first term in field, and then they bump up to 3 days a week. The majority of students that are in our program have 1 field placement for the duration of their time. So you're not, working with one organization this semester and then transition to a second organization this semester and then the third. You're in one organization for a full 3 semesters or about a year, because you get to learn a lot about the life cycle of one organization and to be deeply embedded in what field looks like during that time. So the other part of the courses is definitely the classroom coursework, but there is the field placement that you're doing as well. So those 2 to 3 days per week that you are doing your practicum, or your sometimes referred to as internship, but what we call field placement, is something that, again, students have a lot of questions about. If you are a master track student or an advanced standing student, you should have already received and hopefully applied for your local field placement, because you will start in the fall. So on the week of August 28th, you will be starting field. If you have not applied for field yet and you are an advanced standing or master track student, it is critical that you submit that application to apply for your field placement as soon as possible. It's a gigantic matching process. We have over 700 different programs that we match students with for field, but there's lots of things to consider, like transportation and location of the placement, the focus that they do, whether it's an interpersonal practice or a management or a community organizing placement. And so just like there was a webinar that was for, that will be happening for registration, there is a field webinar that has already occurred. Hopefully you were able to either attend in person or to watch the recording, but if you haven't, please make sure that you do that. Again, a lot of the questions that you have will be answered through the webinar, and so it's highly important that you watch that before completing your application. There is a section of the field office's website that is specific to international students. So make sure that you're reading through that information. And then there, if you have any questions, please reach out. There are lots of field faculty within our program that are there. There's typically office hours that you can attend and talk to someone if the time zone works out for you, but you can also feel free to send them emails and ask your questions that way. If you're a student that's a 16-month or 20-month student, you're not starting field until January. And so you will apply for field either towards the end of September or October. You'll get information for applying for field. But right now, the field office is working on placing those incoming advanced standing and master track students. So if you are a student that's in the 16-month or 20-month program, you get to anticipate and be excited about field, but you're not doing anything quite yet. One of the things that is important to know for students is that international students do have to get curricular practical training authorization, or CPT authorization, to do their field placement. So international students, because of your visa, you have to be granted authorization if you're going to work in the US or to do a practical internship. And so the school has set up a way to work with our international center, which is the one where you'll submit the materials to get your CPT authorization. We have a very, I think, well laid out process for doing that. Greta knows and is smiling because she helped to do that some of the past few semesters. But there does need to be a process that goes through where the organization provides a letter saying that you are indeed going to be doing a placement with them. And then there's some paperwork that you submit. There's no fee involved in this, but you do have to have your CPT authorization before you can start earning your field placement hours. And that is different. Our domestic students do not require that because they're not on a visa status. So as soon as they are placed, if they are placed on August 26th, everything gets set up for their field placement on a Friday, they can start field on the Monday morning. But for you all, you do have to have this authorization before you can start working at your field placement. And so that's one of the reasons I emphasize it's very, very important that you do submit your field placement application on time or as quickly thereafter as you can, because it takes a little time. All students, it typically is going to take a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months for you to secure your field placement. But there is this additional step. It shouldn't be scary. It's pretty well laid out what you need to do, but it is worth being aware of is that there is an extra step for you given your visa status. And we do have some helpful resources around that. So the link here goes to the International Center for CPT. And I think Greta will put in the chat, we have a document that's specific for School of Social Work students because our school provides some additional help for you all in navigating that process. So the last area that I get to touch on is financial aid. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about things that international students are eligible for in terms of financial aid and some of the things and reasons why you aren't eligible for other types of aid in our program. So merit-based aid is something that all MSW students are able to apply for. At the time of your MSW program, you would have checked off that you were interested in that, and then you would have automatically been reviewed for merit-based aid. So if you have questions about that, if you're afraid maybe you didn't do that and you want to make sure that you did, or you have questions, our Office of Student Services are the ones that run the merit-based aid financial aid review. There are also special programs that some of you have already applied for. Again, you did that at the time of your MSW program, but there's the Child Welfare Scholars, or there's the Community-Based Initiative Scholars. Our office runs the Global Activities Scholars Program, and these Scholars Program are open to international students to apply for. If that's something you didn't apply for, some of those programs may still be open, but the majority of them are closed at this point. But there's a link where you can explore that. We do have donor funded scholarships. So we have a group of wonderful alums and other friends of the School of Social Work that have contributed funding and monies to the School of Social Work to give to our MSW students. The majority of these are open to all of our students. There are a couple of cases because of the funding coming from the US government or other places where there are citizenship requirements, but those are clearly indicated. So I think in the past, sometimes students were not aware that they were eligible for donor funded scholarships, but unless it says otherwise, you can apply for those, and it is the grand majority of them that are open to all of our students. Finally, our International Center does have emergency funding. And so if something were to come up, during the time of your program, you have a sick family member or some other unforeseen circumstance, know that our International Center does have emergency funding, and that's something that you can look at. It's not something you're proactively applying for now to help kind of fund your program, but it is something if the unexpected happens where there is a place to reach out for some help there. So the types of funding that you're not eligible for as an international student is US-based federal and state aid. And that has to do with your visa, your category. So only US citizen students are eligible for that type of financial aid. And so need-based aid is not something that you're eligible for. And so there's merit and there's need. The merit you do qualify for, but the need-based because of your citizenship and your visa status, you don't qualify. You are not eligible for the Michigan scholarships and opportunity grants. Those are particular types of funding that the School of Social Work gives out, and that is need-based. And so we do have a large emphasis in our program on need-based financial aid. Those are principles that were actually brought forward by our students in the MSW program and were agreed upon by faculty, staff, and students as one of the main ways that we would be distributing the financial aid that the school has. And so since you're an international student, you're required to submit the affidavit of financial support to prove that you have enough funding to receive your visa. And so by submitting that, it shows that you don't have the same level of financial need that many other students may have. And so that's one of the reasons why our international students are not eligible for the need-based scholarships that the school gives out. And then, as we mentioned before, there are just a couple of the donor-funded scholarships that do have citizenship requirements. It's actually very few of them, but it is important to note that there are some places where that is the case. And then lastly, we just put this together. So, the other information was spread out over 3 websites. So this is one-stop shopping to get to all of the kind of financial aid information that you have. And so hopefully that has been helpful to review. Again, we know we're throwing a lot of information at you, but we're also giving you a lot of links, a recording, and months worth of time yet until you start the MSW program. But please, as you're reviewing websites and looking through things, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greta to give you some more of the arrival logistics in terms of what things look like here in Ann Arbor.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Yes, it is a lot of information. I'm like, wow, there's so many things to know, which is great. I just want to say again, if you all have questions as we're going through, you're more than welcome to put questions in the chat. We will have question and answers later as well. Also, we know that we're giving a broad overview of lots of little things, but as we're going, we are pointing out we have lots of specific offices that can give you really in-depth information about all of this. And there's lots of upcoming webinars and things like that. So we want you to make sure you know where to go to get more information when you need it. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about sort of life at the School of Social Work and in Ann Arbor. We recognize that many of you have not been to Ann Arbor or Michigan or maybe even the US before. So we want to give you a sense of what to expect when you get here. So just a little bit about the School of Social Work building. The University of Michigan campus is relatively large, has many, many buildings that are sort of spread out around our campus. And we do have one building that is for the School of Social Work. And so it's just for the School of Social Work. We have our classrooms, our faculty and staff. offices, event space, study spaces, like the picture on the right is one of our really lovely study spaces. We have a student lounge, so lots of things just for social work students that are housed in this building. It is within Ann Arbor, sort of on one of the corners of campus, and really lovely. There's lots of, the trees are have all their leaves, and it's nice and warm and sunny outside, and will be when you get here as well. You'll be arriving sort of at the end of our summer, so we're looking forward to welcoming you to our building. One of the things that all University of Michigan students get is called an M card. This is your official university identification card. And so this is what it looks like. It's a little yellow card. Everyone has one. This allows you to do lots of things. Everyone with that M card can ride our city buses for free, and we'll talk about transportation in Ann Arbor in a little bit. You also, there's some things like at some of our local restaurants and stores, you can get discounts if you show your M card. It is something, you want to have it on you at all times when you're in a campus building, just to show that you're a student here. Sometimes you need to swipe it to get into certain places, depending on sort of if you are doing any sort of special privileges, like a worker internship or something like that within the school or the university. You might use that as identification or access as well. So getting to Ann Arbor or to your housing here. So the nearest airport to Ann Arbor, we do not have a major airport in Ann Arbor itself. The closest one is near Detroit. It's about 35 minutes away. DTW is the airport code for that. So you will likely be flying into DTW when you come. We have several options to get to Ann Arbor from the airport. The one that I would really recommend that you look into is the Michigan Flyer, and we have that website linked when you receive the slides. The Michigan Flyer is a bus that goes straight from the airport to downtown Ann Arbor, which is really convenient. Again, about the 40-minute ride. It costs about $15 depending on what day you come in, and so it's really convenient there. You have space underneath the bus to put your luggage and all of that. We also have other options. If you don't want to ride the bus, we do have Uber and Lyft ride shares that travel between the airport and Ann Arbor. We also have some taxi companies, although taxis are not so common in Ann Arbor and the surrounding areas as they used to be, but you are able to get one from the airport if that's what you would like to choose. And then we also just encourage you to use your networks. If you have friends, you're connected to other international students on, some sort of chat that you've been able to do, you have family members or a friend of a friend, having people pick you up from the airport and bring you to Ann Arbor, it's not so far away, so it's not too big of an ask. So we encourage you to do that as well if you're able. So transportation around Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is not a very big city, but we do have some public transportation options. So we have two different bus systems that serve our campus and surrounding Ann Arbor. The first are the University of Michigan Blue buses. They are bright blue. These are free buses, and they are sort of our campus buses. So they primarily serve the University of Michigan. Because our university is rather large, we have sort of different campuses that are all right next to each other, but it would be quite long to walk from one to the other. So the School of Social Work is located in Central Campus, sort of right in the middle, but we have some campus buildings to the north and some housing to the north. We have some athletic buildings and fitness centers to the south. And so these blue buses are very convenient. They come very frequently, every 10 to 15 minutes, and you can just hop on and get where you need to go. We also have city buses, which is known as the Ride in Ann Arbor. And these, like I said, are free when you're using your M card, your identification card. And this goes all around Ann Arbor and to our neighboring town, Ypsilanti. So this goes pretty much everywhere that most students choose to live. If you're choosing to live in sort of the greater Ann Arbor area, buses go to quite a few places. However, because we are a small town, just something to know, I would encourage you when you're thinking about housing, you might be looking into that, to just take a look at our bus map. Things sort of start in Ann Arbor Center. We have a big bus depot and sort of go out from there, sort of like spokes of a bicycle. Our bus lines don't connect around the outside. And so that's just something to consider if you're planning to use bus transportation as your primary transportation to and from your housing, just to take a look at where our bus lines are to make sure that'll be convenient for where you're planning on being housed. The D2A2 is another bus. This is a bus that goes from Ann Arbor to Detroit, which is about 45 minutes away. And so that's a possibility too. Some students have internships, field placements in Detroit. And so just to note, there's a transportation option to get there. Again, Uber, Lyft, and taxi are all options to get around Ann Arbor. And then some students also choose to do a car rental whenever they need a car. So Zipcar is a company that you sign up for a membership. There are cars parked around the city. And then if you have a membership, you can rent a Zipcar on a sort of short-term basis. So you would pay to like rent it for maybe a couple hours to go to the grocery store, to the mall, or to take a trip somewhere. But it's just a very short-term rental that you can do frequently because you have a membership. We also have a more traditional car rental agency in town called Enterprise, and this would be sort of you go to, maybe if you're going to a trip across the state or something like that, you want to rent a car for a weekend, you would be able to do that and then return it when you get back to Ann Arbor. We do also, if you are coming and choosing to either buy or lease or have a car, maybe borrow a car in the longer term while you're here, we do have what's called commuter parking lots, or park and rides is how they're known. These are free sort of big parking lots where people are encouraged to park and then can take a bus to campus. And so it's just sort of a convenient way because parking is very, very difficult, especially around the School of Social Work. It's rather expensive to park sort of on the street with meter parking. And so sometimes parking a little bit farther out and then taking a short ride, bus ride to campus is convenient. You can also get a parking permit if you wish. If you have a car and you would like to use that to get to campus, you are sometimes able to purchase parking permits. So instead of doing a metered parking or street parking, you can get a permit that you pay for the year, and then that would allow you to park in certain spaces, which is usually a little bit more economical if that is the transportation option you choose. So housing is a big deal, and housing, it's when you're coming from far away, we know that it is hard to envision what is it going to be like, what is the housing going to be when I can't sort of walk through it first. So we try to give you lots and lots of information to help you understand what to expect, what your rights and responsibilities are for housing in Ann Arbor. When we send this out to you, you'll see there's lots of different options for housing. You might want to live in shared space with roommates. You might be bringing your family and looking for sort of housing for multiple people. You might be looking for your own apartment. And so there's lots of ways to look for people who are offering apartments or homes or rooms for rent. And so we'll give you some options for how to look for those. I also really want to highlight in this blue box here, there is an off-campus housing webinar that's being held by the International Center. I would really encourage you, if housing is still something you have a lot of questions about or need some guidance or support on, to attend this webinar. They'll also have a recording, but should be able to help you out with if there's still some big questions left for you about housing. Some other things just for you to know, these are sort of like important points about housing. As a part of your visa requirement, you are required to update your address in Wolverine Access. So Katie talked about Wolverine Access as a sort of hub of student information and classwork and financial aid and all of that. That keeps your your sort of information that we collect about you as a student. So your phone number, your email address, all of that. Once you have, you've arrived in the US and you have, are here and in your housing, we need you to be able to go in and update that address to your current local address. And that is a requirement of your visa status. And then just the last sort of important thing for you to know is that you do have rights as someone who is renting an apartment or a home or a room. And so we have an organization on campus called Student Legal Services. And if you ever, while you're here, run into trouble with your housing, you feel like something's broken that the landlord is refusing to fix, or you feel like something is just not quite what you expected, Student Legal Services can help you understand sort of your rights as a renter and help you if there's any sort of conflict that comes up. They can support you and in advocating for yourself and getting what you need in terms of housing. Okay, so some more, there's lots to know about life in Ann Arbor, right? There's many, many things about phones and banking and driver's license and health insurance. If you're coming with children, how to get childcare, what's going on socially. And we understand that you might have lots of questions and also that it's overwhelming to take it in all at once. Katie's going to pull up the International Center website, has this sort of, Life in Ann Arbor page, if you haven't seen this already, that really breaks down to the lots of common categories that students, honestly, both internationally and just coming from a different part of the US, have questions about what's Ann Arbor going to be like and what will my life be like. So again, this is just a great resource for you if you have questions about what this might be like. There's lots and lots of information there, so you can kind of go in and find what feels most important or what you have questions about. And then again, Katie mentioned this before, but there is a summer orientation with the International Center coming up. We would really encourage you to attend that if you are able, again, just to get a little more information, have an opportunity to have your questions answered. Okay, so some more sort of life in Ann Arbor opportunities. So wanted to talk about a couple ways to get involved at U of M. There's lots and lots of students here. We have a big community. Our international student at the cohort at the School of Social Work is not super, super big, but we do have a lot, like a really, really big international student population at U of M as a whole. So there's ways to get involved with your fellow international students and other students across campus. One thing I want to point out is GRIN. So this is the Graduate Rackham International Network. So this is it is a cohort or a student group of all international students. The Graduate Rackham Center is sort of our big graduate student, not a student organization, but that sort of houses all of many of our graduate schools on campus. The School of Social Work is also a graduate program. It's a little bit separate from the Rackham graduate program, but it is all graduate students. And so you're invited to join that student group and interact with that student group of international students as well. They do social events, informational events, advocacy events, lots of different things. They're pretty active. And so they do have a newsletter sign up. And if you choose to go to their website, they have links to their Facebook and other social media pages where they're pretty active as well. There's lots of things to do on campus. We have lots of student organizations, both within the School of Social Work and across campus. The School of Social Work has an active student union, and students frequently will be forming groups and have new ideas for something that hasn't been done before. We have some long-running groups of students who are sort of organized by an interest, a passion, some sort of activity, an identity, lots of different things. So as you can see on the website, there's many, many different sort of groups that you can join based on your interests or what really appeals to you. Because our students are only on campus at the School of Social Work for anywhere from 1 to 2 years, these organizations roll over a little bit. So it might take some looking to find one that's still active. And you can always feel free to start your own if that's something you're interested in, or you don't see a group that you're looking for or would like to participate in. We have many other groups that you can click on those links when you get the PowerPoint and find lots to do as well. Lots of musical, sports, and basically any kind of activity you can imagine is probably here. So I encourage you to look into that to find where you'll fit in socially. Okay, and then we just wanted to give a little bit of sort of what have past international students said about life in Ann Arbor. So these are not words that Katie and I put together. Each year we do a survey of our international students and become our alumni and just kind of gather, what is important, what advice would you give to yourself when you were starting this program or for our new students coming in. So these are some things that they told us. So get to know other international students and domestic students to form your own support network. And so we'll have some opportunities that we provide through our office for that, but really finding where you fit, finding the students who you really want to interact with and get excited about. Don't be afraid to reach out. be proactive, take charge of your learning, and take advantage of opportunities. So we know that this can be a really big transition to be an international student, to come to a whole new place for your education. But we encourage you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, and find what's out there. Be prepared to gain a lot of understanding about American context and policies in the US. This is a big thing we hear from our international students, that our curriculum in the School of Social Work talks a lot about the US context. And so if that, I think there'll be a lot of learning likely for you about the US context specifically. That's another place. Don't be afraid to reach out if that feels overwhelming and you need some help putting that context into place. There'll be opportunities for that as well. Be open to learning about new cultures. We are a very multicultural, diverse school and campus and town. You'll probably have more projects and papers than exams. Be prepared for writing, working in groups, and presentations. So our classwork is set up such that we don't usually have final exams. It is a lot more project-based and paper-based. We do have a writing support in the School of Social Work as well on campus. And so if that is something that you feel nervous about, know that there's resources for that as well, but you will be likely writing more papers and writing more projects than taking exams or tests. And then culture shock is real, but we're here for you. So we've included this sort of a guide to coping with culture shock, but there's lots of other resources, both online and in person here, as you're making your adjustment to Ann Arbor and to the School of Social Work. Every student is assigned to an academic advisor that is there to support you, especially with your academics and your course load, and making sure that it is the right fit for your professional goals. The International Center, like you've seen, is a big support and has a lot of information and opportunities. And then we also have support groups for sort of more specific things. All students have access to the counseling and psychological services, or CAPS, on campus. And this is our sort of mental health support that all students can receive on a short-term basis for free. We actually have a counselor specifically for the School of Social Work that you can use at any time. And she is here to sort of direct students in what's going to be most helpful for them and getting their needs met in terms of sort of mental health and well-being. Student legal services can help with housing, like I mentioned. The Office of Financial Aid, it's always good to ask if you need help. Even, how Katie said, there's the scholarship sort of situation is very specific based on citizenship and visa requirements, but our Office of Financial Aid is always open to talking with you if you find yourself in a place where there's unexpected circumstances and you need help. That's why we do have things like the emergency fund. And so we want to encourage you to ask for things if you need it. Okay, and then one of the ways that is a possibility for you to get connected is our Global Partner Program. And so this is a really awesome program that we've had going for a couple of years now. And it pairs you all as an incoming international student with either a second year international US student or a second year international student. So a student who's been in Ann Arbor for at least a year. Many of our second year international students have been in the GPP program as incoming students, and will come back and say, yes, I want to be like a mentor, a partner for one of our incoming students. And so this is just an opportunity to meet, once a month or once every couple of weeks together with someone who has gotten used to Ann Arbor, can answer questions, can give you recommendations of good places to eat, whatever you might be wondering about. And so we'll be announcing that this fall of how to sign up for that program if you're interested and how to get involved. We usually do a couple of social events all together during the semester, so you get to do some of those classic Ann Arbor activities, and really just, it's a way to start growing your network and get to know some students in a really welcoming environment. Okay. Katie and I have talked a lot. This is a ton of information, and we hope it was helpful. Again, you'll be getting this recording and the slides to look through it more. Now, if you are willing, we would just love to learn a little bit about who's here today. We've been seeing the list of incoming students, and we would love to put names to faces if that's something you're willing to do. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, we would just love to, you're welcome to unmute yourself, turn on your camera, and just tell us your name. If you're comfortable saying your gender pronouns, this is something you'll likely be asked a lot at the School of Social Work. It's pretty common for us to say our name followed by our pronouns when we introduce ourselves here. If you'd like to say your country of citizenship or where you're living now. And then a little bit about yourself that you'd be willing to share, just something very short, maybe a hobby or an interest that you have, or something, a volunteer or work experience that you feel has prepared you for the School of Social Work, or maybe that you'd like to share. So if anyone is willing, we would love to hear you. We would love to give you time to introduce yourself. So yeah, feel free if anyone feels ready for that.
Hi, can anyone hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, I'm Yuqing, and I'm from Taiwan. And so I use she, her pronouns. And for what my hobby or interest, I like to exercise. And for now, I'm working at Taiwan Innocence Project as a researcher. So not directly related to social work, but we do have a support unit in our office. So that's where we have a part-time social work, and I work with her quite. So we work closely together. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to the fall semester. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. We're looking forward to meeting you.
Hi everyone, my name is Li Jian and I come from China. My hobby is, I use she, her as my pronoun, and my hobby is to do yoga and mindfulness. I work as a Chinese language teacher in K-12 setting in China for a couple of years, and that gives me a lot of chance to work with children and their families. So that prepared me to in the social work field. It's really glad to meet all of you today.
Great, thanks so much. I think we do have one of the students groups is a mindful meditation group. So that might be one you're interested in checking out.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, can you hear me actually?
Yep, we can hear you great.
Hi, this is Anne. So I'm now back in China, but I lived in New York for 7 years, and I'm a mindfulness social influencer on TikTok, and so that's part also I'm good at tarot reading. That's part of my hobby. So yeah, I'm glad to meet you, and thank you so much for the presentation for today.
Thanks for logging on at what I know is a late time for you.
Yeah, it's pretty late, and I'm also on the time difference right now. I'm a little bit very dizzy. So sleepy right now.
No worries. And if there's other folks that want to just unmute and introduce themselves, I know it can be late where you are, so no need to turn your camera on if you're not in a place or space to do that. But thanks for introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Well, while we're waiting to see if anyone else wants to jump in, and again, you're not obligated, I'll just give you a little bit of information. Last that I checked with Michelle, I think there are about 17 for sure students that are coming, international students that are coming in this fall. And I think there are an additional 10 or so that are still going through the process and kind of making their decision or getting their visas. So that's a pretty large group for us. So I think it's the largest group that we've had in a pretty long time. I think we've around 12 to 15 international students is pretty common, and so to be closer towards 20 some or so, your group will be a nice sized group for that. And again, our office really looks forward to supporting you and helping you through the program One of the things that I don't think we mentioned on our slides is we do a biweekly coffee hour. And so we do have coffee hour for our international students twice a month, and the topics are determined by all of you. Some of them will just be times to get together to chat and connect, and it will be more kind of social and informal. And in other points, based on student interests and requests, we bring in guest speakers to talk about different topics. We've done some with, students that have graduated, talking about what does the job market look like. We've done things, we've invited our CAPS counselor to come to talk about, counseling and psychological services as you're, also thinking about if you haven't experienced winter like we have in Ann Arbor, like that can be a big change. And so thinking about how weather can affect mood and all of that. So yeah, that's another thing to kind of look forward to. But before we open it up for questions, we just wanted to make sure, is there anybody else that would like to introduce themselves that hasn't had the chance to? Great, go ahead, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm from Qatar. I'm a teaching assistant at Qatar University. And the second question, regarding to my hobbies, I have many different hobbies, but one of them that I like to take pictures and like a photographer. In addition to that, what makes me a professional social worker is that I have practiced in a drug addict hospital as a clinical social worker. In addition to that, I have practiced as a school social worker. So for 1 year, both of them together. So yes, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Xiaoya, and just please feel free to call me Sia. And I use she, her pronouns. I came from China. And for my hobbies, I would say swimming could be one of my biggest hobbies. And for some like volunteer or work experiences, honestly, I don't have much specifically for social work. But during my senior year, I have completed one project focused on students coping with homesickness they feel related to like the new experiences they got from the school. So that made me a little bit like drive to maybe social work could be one of my interests in the future. So thank you for today, and thank you for your presentation, which is really great. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. All right, well, if there's anyone else, feel free, please, to ask your question or to introduce yourself. But this is kind of the end of the part where we talk at you. So now it's either your turn to introduce yourself still. If you want to, feel free to hop on and do so. But also if you have questions, either via the chat, you can put them in that way. You can unmute yourself, raise your hand, however makes the most sense. Greta and I are available to stick on for the next, 20 or so minutes. So if people have, individual questions or more groups specific questions, feel free to ask those now, either via the chat or by unmuting. But we really are looking forward to meeting you and working with you. And this is a picture from our last year from our international student orientation. And so we're excited to have you join campus and be a part of the School of Social Work. And so do let us know what questions or concerns that you have.
Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, I just have one question. I would like to know regarding to our subject. We will need to register for just a specific class, such as for the 16 months. We need to register for this class with this professor, or we can choose any class but the same subject.
Yeah, great question. So for students that are 16-month or 20-month students that have not taken foundation courses yet, your first semester is pretty prescribed for you. There are 5 classes that you'll be taking, but there are many sections of those classes. So for instance, you'll be taking one course that focuses on more macro social work and another course that focuses on more micro or interpersonal practice social work. But there will probably be 8 to 10 different sections of that course offered. So you don't have a choice in terms of you need to take the foundation courses because those are important to set you up to take the advanced courses. So you don't have a choice in which courses you're taking, but you do have a choice in how you organize them and which professors you're taking them with. And so you can definitely look up on the School of Social Work website. When you get the information about registration, it'll list the faculty member, and you can go through our faculty profile and read about the faculty members. So if there's one faculty that's teaching the course that you're interested in that does work in the area of child welfare and you're really interested in that, you might take that course as opposed to a faculty member that has more interest in management and leadership that's teaching that course. And then the other kind of choice that you have basically is in thinking about how you arrange your classes. So some students really like to have the classes spread out over 5 days of the week, where other students are interested in maybe only having classes 2 days a week. So then they have 3 days for studying or doing other things. So thinking about how you want to arrange those classes, there's definitely are choices, but not so much your first semester if you're a 16-month or 20-month course in which classes, just rather which sections or instructors. And Greta just dropped in the chat the directory for our faculty. So if you see who's teaching the course, you can put the faculty name in there and see if they're one of our tenure track faculty. There'll be a pretty robust profile for them in terms of their kind of focus area, the research that they do, previous projects or publications. Many of our lecturers are in the system as well, but there may not be as much information about them. Typically, our lecturers are practicing social workers or have another full-time job outside of the university, and they're teaching maybe one or a handful of courses at the university. They're often really great faculty to have, so don't think just because maybe there isn't quite as much information about them that they aren't fantastic faculty. It's just that their full-time job isn't necessarily at the university. Great question.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
And then I'll just add on to that, for the advanced standing students or for the master track students, you will have more choices. So the way that it works is students that need foundation coursework have to check off those boxes and do those things. Each of you is in a pathway, and your pathway has some requirements. So there are 12 credits of requirements attached with your pathway. Some pathways tell you exactly what you need to take in what order, and some pathways might tell you you have to take these 2 classes and then you have some other choices to fill the other 6 credits. So if you are, once you're either past the foundation coursework because you're in your 2nd semester as a 16-month or 20-month student, or if you're coming in as an advanced standing or master track student, at that point you start having more choices in picking some either elective classes or ways to fulfill your pathway requirements. So the further you get into the program, the more choice you have towards the content and classes. But if you're coming in with the foundation, you are pretty locked into taking the things that are required as the base of your social work education. All right, we've got another person with a question.
I have a question. I'm in the 12 months of the pathway of children, welfare and children and the family. I'm curious if I can change to the 16 months and interpersonal practice pathway. If so, how can I change to that pathway and when is the deadline?
Yeah, great question. So because you are an advanced standing student, master track and advanced standing students are starting field, your pathway impacts what type of field placement that you have. So if you're an advanced standing or 16 or advanced standing or master track student and you're thinking about changing your pathway, It's a decision you need to make pretty quickly because it's going to impact the courses that you enroll with, but also the field placement that you have. If you are a 16-month or 20-month student, you don't actually declare your pathway until partway through your first semester, and you've had some time to kind of learn more about what social work is and what might be the best way for you, or what might be the best pathway. So in your case, if you're interested in switching pathways, you'd want to send an email to the Office of Student Services, and they can help you make that switch. So it's the same office that you've communicated with in terms of, your admissions, any financial aid information. It's also fine. Most of you probably know Michelle Gorton because you've been communicating with her. You can make that request to her and she can pass that on to colleagues that can help you switch your pathway. But as an advanced standing or master track student, it'd be pretty important that you do that quickly because your field placement has to match your primary pathway. And so if you're switching, we want to make sure they're matching you with a field placement that matches your pathway. And again, as 16-month or 20-month students, you have some built-in time to learn about what social work is before you make that decision related to your pathway. Is that helpful?
Thank you so much. Can I, by the way, can I have this PowerPoint after the meeting, because they are very useful links on it?
Yes, so we will hopefully get it sent out. Today's Wednesday. It may take us until Friday to send it out, but we'll try and get it out, as soon as we can. We just need to download the recording and get that put together. And then you'll get an email with the PowerPoint and all the links. And then Greta just put in the chat the email that you can email if you're interested in switching your pathway or switching your curriculum track. At this point, that's who you would talk to. And I see someone has a question about how to schedule a meeting with your advisor. And particularly related to dual degree programs. So the same email that Greta put in there right now, your advisor as it is right now is the Office of Student Services. Advisors will be assigned for students a little bit later in the summer. So most of our faculty have 9-month appointments and they're actually off right now. So they're not available to be your advisor when you're coming in. They will be back in their jobs kind of starting at the end of August. And so for now, the Office of Student Services does all advising for students and related with course planning. And then towards the end of the summer, you'll find out who your specific faculty advisor is. You'll be connected with that person, and your first opportunity to meet them is typically during Seed Week. Many of the faculty are available for a lunch that happens during one of the in-person days. So particularly if you're a dual degree student, reaching out to the Office of Student Services around the course planning is really important. Some of our dual degree programs have very specific course planning worksheets, and some of them take a little bit more kind of advising and working and talking with the two sides. And so I know that the Office of Student Services really is the best person for you to connect with about that. And it would be important that you do that to make sure you know how to split courses between two programs. I'm also going to put specifically, I think for dual degree course planning, I'm going to put Erin Zimmer's name and her email address in the chat box. And Erin would definitely be one of the folks to reach out to that has a lot of knowledge about our dual degree programs and kind of how to go forward. But if you do have general advising questions, right now the Office of Student Services is the best person to talk to because many faculty are indeed on their break. Other questions? If you're wondering it, somebody else is probably wondering it too, or maybe they don't even know that they should. And once you ask it, they'll be like, oh yeah. So there's no question that's silly or too big or too small. Right, well, Greta and I will continue to hang on for a few more minutes. So if you do have more questions, feel free either in the chat or to unmute yourself. But that's really the end of our presentation for today. So again, we really do look forward to working with you. Know that there's a great group of international students that are currently here in the program. I know it can be a lot to kind of to think about as you're getting ready to move. Most of our students are moving and relocating to the area, but you all are probably coming from some of the most far away locations. I think for this group this year, I was looking, I think we have students potentially coming from China, Taiwan, Qatar, Kuwait, India, I think Tanzania. There was a couple of other countries. So if I didn't mention yours, I just didn't remember it off the top of my head, but we should have a good group of international students. And again, our office is really here to support you. Like we said, there's no silly or too small of a question. Greta, can you put our email address for the office in there? You can reach out to either Greta or I directly, but we'll give you the general office email too, which both of us can access and respond to. So please don't be shy if questions come up between now and when you arrive.